This episode of the podcast is brought to you in part by Mint Mobile. Breaking up with your big wireless provider has never been easier thanks to Mint Mobile. For a limited time, wireless plans from Mint Mobile are just $15 a month. That's unlimited talk, text, and data for just $15 a month. Order today at mintmobile.com/TFS. Hello and welcome to Talk from Superheroes. Hey everybody, I'm Andrew Ivamy.
And I'm Diana McCullum.
And you're listening to Talk from Superheroes, where every week we discuss a piece of heroic television or film. And this week on the podcast, we're bridging gaps.
We're crossing peaks.
Oh!
I couldn't figure out how to get to a peak immediately.
You got me there.
I got you there. But you climbed to a peak, perhaps?
We're all playing pretty fast and loose with metaphors today, so let's have fun with it. Who cares?
Metaphors, themes, movies we're covering.
We're doing it all. Today we're talking about Crimson Peak on the podcast, kind of transitioning from spooky, scary Halloween month into next week we will be talking about Loki Season 2. So it's to the Hiddleston.
So it's the Hiddleston gap of creepy into May
into
Hiddleston
the
Loki.
Hiddleston Spook Bridge.
The classic Crimson Peak Spook Bridge from October to November.
Absolutely.
Everyone crosses it.
Yeah, physicians always talk about it, the Hiddleston Spook Bridge, which can technically take you across space and time.
Hiddleston, very good at charming and very good at spooky goth.
So...
And then he just lives on the bridge.
You're like, and then you're like,
oh wait, maybe,
huh?
Maybe I like him.
Wait a minute.
What's spooky goth?
Wait, we're crossing the Hiddleston Spook Bridge. So we're talking about Crimson Peak on today's episode of the podcast, kind of bridging between the two worlds. But let's just get into it, shall we?
Let's just talk about this Guillermo del Toro film.
Let's talk about Crimson Peak. All right, we have seen Crimson Peak, and
we certainly have.
And Diana has corrected me that next week we are talking about the Marvels.
We are indeed.
And then we'll be talking about Loki.
The Hiddleston Bridge is longer than you think it is.
It's longer than you gotta take the Brie off-ramp in order to get there.
Yeah, you gotta pack a lunch.
Yeah, the Brie Hiddleston off-ramp is Kong Skull Island.
Oh, and it's such a shame we've already covered Kong Skull Island.
One of the sexiest movies ever made.
But it is not a hardship to watch that film again.
It is no hardship. Y'all, if you haven't seen Kong Skull Island, go watch that. Please go watch that. It's phenomenal. But that's not what we're talking about today.
We're not talking about Kong Skull Island. God damn it.
We're talking about Crimson Peak, the horror movie with Tom Hiddleston and many other phenomenal A-list cast members, directed by Guillermo del Toro. Diana, did you like it?
Nah, dog. No, not this one. I can appreciate that there is an art here. Like, it's a very well-made bad movie. Like, at no point am I like, oh, they ran out of time or money, or they didn't work on the script enough. I'm like, man, this just isn't good. It's just boring but weird, and it doesn't make sense, and it's not scary, and it's not emotional, and it's not like bland enough to be like, the blandness is the thing, which is what some gothic horror is. Like, it's the desolation and the emptiness. That's not it either. It forgets it's a ghost movie a lot of the time, which is kind of funny in retrospect. And like, these are great actors who are given nothing that I care about. I don't like anyone here. I barely even liked looking at it. Yeah, this just was no fun to watch, other than maybe every now and then to be like, what a beautiful shot you got here. This was really nice. But also it's 2 hours long and I'm bored and I want to go home, and I am home. I'm home and it makes me want to go home. So that's how I feel about Crimson Peak. Andrew, did you like Crimson Peak?
I'm very much on the same page as you. I probably liked it a little bit less. I think it's quite bad. I think it's a style that isn't usually for me, and this in particular isn't for me. And I also do think it's poorly done. There's some stuff about it that feels kind of casual and breezy. Like, this is a group of the most talented people who feel like they are making a film in like a weekend as a lark, but they're all like, but no one's really stressed about it. Like nothing feels like it's like Guillermo del Toro or like Jessica Chastain being like, if we don't finish this movie, we do not get the fucking studio money and they're up our ass, god damn it. It honestly feels like 6 wildly talented people on a weekend that they were free were like, I don't know, let's see if this is something. And they're just kind of playing around in a wildly low-stress environment, and a couple of things turned out fine and looked pretty good, but no one's giving it their best. No one's super prepared. The script is sloppy. This is just, it's really bad and boring to watch.
I love this description of how casual it is, like a horror version of Ocean's 12.
Yeah.
Like, no one has a lot of stakes here. Like, everyone's like, our careers are going to be fine. Nothing is hanging on an edge here. The producers with the money don't care.
Yeah.
We just kind of have free reign. And sometimes people shouldn't have that.
Yeah, I agree. Or they should in a low stakes, lower budget environment. But like, I don't expect any wild Hollywood stories to come out about this movie. You know, like sometimes you see a bad movie and you're like, I'm willing to bet in a few years there's going to be a story where Hiddleston's like, Guillermo showed up drunk every day. We were behind schedule. Like
that hole in the floor was real and we kept falling into it.
Some shit like that. Like the Snowman type of a thing where it's like, we honestly only filmed half of this. Let me tell you what an insane thing this was to work on. It seems like a very normal thing to work on, where everyone had a safe and normal work environment and had an okay time doing a thing no one was prepared for.
I will say that about Guillermo del Toro. For a man who loves to do horror monster movies, there is never any weird on-set shit.
Yeah.
He's not method about it. He's not like, you have to feel the ghosts and you'll be scared and I'm not going to tell you what this scene's about. I'm just going to pop a scare at you or something. He's very gentle. He is a gentle horror man.
It's just him and Doug Jones showing up and making sure that it is a safe and professional work environment. Yeah. And I got a lot of love and respect for that. I feel like, this is a like, good for you for having like a great work environment, to be a good, fun person to work with, where a bunch of talented people want to spend a bit of off time making a mediocre thing with you that, you know, doesn't go down in the annals of history as this horrific experiment, this terrible movie, this abusive set. It's just like, that was boring, huh? Yeah. And that's it.
That's all I'm going to take away from this. I'm not going to be like, oh, none of these people should work again. I'll never watch another Guillermo del Toro movie. I'm just going to be like, man, that one stunk.
Yeah, just a stinker. You slipped a stinker in.
You made Blade 2 and Pacific Rim? What the hell, man?
Yeah. You made Shape of Water and Pan's Labyrinth, but you slip a stinker in. Every director is going to slip a stinker in every now and then.
Everyone is. Now, I will say, even the very good actors, though, in this aren't good. Like, we're watching this for Hiddleston, and I don't find Hiddleston particularly good in this. An actor who I think is wildly talented.
Yes. And I do think that this is, I said it in jest, and I mean it sincerely, that this is everyone's weekend free that they made this project for. Because looking up some information about it, there's no huge controversy or anything, but no one in this was supposed to be in this.
No one was supposed to be in this. Jessica Chastain was filming another movie and was flying between Toronto and New York at the same time.
And Jessica Chastain was a replacement for someone else. I can't remember who it was originally.
I also can't remember who.
And Tom Hiddleston was a replacement for Benedict Cumberbatch.
That is such an obvious replacement. Like, like, who's next on the list of the British
boom, bang.
British crazy guys?
Boom bang, we do that.
We get that.
And Hiddleston had 1 to 2 days notice before they started filming. So like, he had barely read the full script, let alone like had a deep understanding of this character or how he wanted to embody it. It really was like, hey, who's really charming, who can just kind of make something pop a little bit with 1 day notice. And we didn't have a meeting. We didn't talk about the character. We didn't figure out if their style or the choices they were going to make will work with this film and the rest of the cast. We just got to start filming tomorrow. So Let's just all be chill about this.
Yeah, you can really tell because Hiddleston is like an actor. He's like he's a Shakespearean actor, and he loves to break down a character and make them so complex with so few lines. So the fact that this character feels so vacant and empty, when you look at the script, you're like, oh, he actually is wildly complex. He's committing murders of women he loves. He has a relationship with his sister that he's very conflicted about. He wants to succeed, but he also like wants to love these women. There's tons to mine there if he had time to like actually kind of figure this character out, but it is so flat. And some scenes have a weird quality to them where they feel like a play in a bad way.
Yeah.
Yes. like, but not in a way where you're like, oh, this was a play and they're trying to get those vibes. The play version of like, and it's weird to say this about a movie we think they filmed really quickly. The scenes feel like when you've done a play 1,000 times and you've stopped listening to your scene partner.
Yeah.
Where you're just like, my lady, your book is wonderful. And she says something and you're like, and my next line is, would you come to the ball with me? And I haven't listened to what you've said or how you've said it, and I won't change my acting choices in any way. And a lot of Tom Hiddleston and Mia Wasikowski's scenes together are that.
Yes.
Which is very weird when you think they filmed this quickly.
Well, I think that's just what happens when you've had a day. Like, he hasn't memorized the lines, the vibes.
So
he's not living in the scene.
He's just thinking of the next line.
He's just saying it, which is a thing Hiddleston never does. I think the worst moment of that is early on. The first act of this movie is the messiest and worst. It is people just saying exposition on top of one another very flatly. But the worst is when Mia is at her Mia Wasikowski, who plays Edith, is at her desk and is like working on her novel, and she's typing it up instead of handwriting it. And then Tom Hiddleston's character, Thomas Sharp, comes into the room.
Oh, he's both named Tom. That's great.
Yeah, that does help.
Double Tom.
And it's just like, and that might also be, you have 24 hours. We don't have time to give this guy a different name.
You have to respond when people say Tom.
Yeah, comes in and is like, I have a meeting with your dad. She's like, great, you do. And he just immediately goes, wow, this is really great writing you're working on. He has looked at one sheet of paper upside down for approximately 3 seconds, and he's like, you're so incredibly talented. I really think that you could make it as a writer someday. Oh, do you? Thank you. I would really like to make it as a writer. And it is just that speed and that monotone, just rapid fire of stating things at one another.
They are absolutely stating them at one another. And even if they had time to rehearse, it's nonsense.
Yeah.
It's absolute nonsense. He sees writing on the page for 3 seconds, and then he says something like, is that fiction? And he says the word fiction like fiction didn't exist yet. Like it was a new genre. And it's like, it's 1893 or something. And I'm like, we've had fiction, my dude.
Yes.
Maybe a woman writing fiction is new-ish at the time. But yeah, the way he's like, is that fiction? And I'm like, yeah, man.
Yeah.
And what else doesn't make sense is like, you know, eventually you find out he just wants to marry her for her money. But within the plot, he's already been going after this girl named Eunice. And then he switches over to Astrid or whatever her name is, Edith.
Yeah.
So it's like, so you didn't come in here looking to pick this girl up.
No.
You actually came in here sincerely to go to the investors meeting.
Yeah.
So you actually were like, oh, fiction?
I think he is naturally charming and is sincerely looking for investors, and then also is a murderous huckster.
Constantly looking for new rich wife as well.
Yeah. So but I think is also wowed that this woman wrote incredible fiction that he read upside down for 3 seconds while also delivering other lines.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that also felt very like kids' play of being like, wow, let me read your book. Whoa, what an incredible book I just read. And it's like, what? You didn't.
Yeah, you have to kind of falsify time in a play. Like you can't have a scene cut of he read the book for 30 minutes and we're going to cut to a different scene.
Yes.
It's very play-esque.
But it's just little things where it's like restaging the blocking would make that work, because before he arrives, Edith and her friend are having this scene about her fiction writing and being like, I'm going to type it out so they don't notice the feminine writing, and I'm going to submit it and this and that. They have a full scene. And then Tom Hiddleston's character, Thomas, enters. If he just entered and they were like, you need to wait a minute, and then they played out their scene, it would give a moment for this character in the background to have read this so everything would flow and feel organic. But it's just these little things and they all stack on top of one another, where it's these 2% problems that add up to creating 70% problems in every scene, where they just one on top of the other, problem.
Yeah. And none of it feels natural or how any of it would work, but not in a way that like the movie's going for. It's not that supposed to be that kind of unsettling gothic horror. It's just like, that's not how people do things.
Yeah.
You don't just look at a piece of paper upside down and then you're like, oh, beautiful, wonderful writing.
What a writer. Yeah.
It's sloppy, I'm going to say.
Sloppy. Yeah. A few incidences of sloppy in this whole first act, which is a full movie in itself.
The first act is a Jane Austen novel if you take out the mom ghost.
Yes.
Like the first act is like a Little Women, like a Sense and Sensibility, like, oh, I've met this charming man and how do I go about society when I don't want to go to balls and he chose me over someone else. It is a speed run of like a Pride and Prejudice kind of story. And then they're like, but wait, the other two acts have ghosts. To the point where the funniest thing that happened in this movie was we were like 25 minutes in and you started laughing because you were like, I forgot there were ghosts.
I forgot there was any supernatural element to this at all.
This is just a society film.
Which, frankly, the supernatural element is irrelevant to the plot.
Absolutely.
People who like this movie might argue, be like, but at the end, the ghost tells her that Tom Hiddleston's character is doing murders. And it's like, at that point, she's seeing him stab her. She knows everything she needs to know without the assistance of ghosts.
Yeah, the ghosts were like a little slight verification, but she already knew she was being poisoned. She could tell. Once she had the fucking Victrola tapes.
Yeah, there are recordings of the ghosts when they were alive saying, hey, we were murdered, so if you're finding these, we're murdered. And then she's like, that's what the ghosts are. It's okay, sure, but this is a murder plot.
Yeah, she got the key for the suitcase by herself, and then the suitcase had all the envelopes with like the letters and the proof and the marriage certificates. Like the ghosts were a little late.
And especially when the meta-narrative that's implied here is that this movie opens as like she is a writer and she wants to write these spooky, scary ghost stories. But people don't take her seriously because she's a woman. And the publisher she visits is like, you've got to add a love interest to spruce up your ghost stories. And she's like, but I don't want to tell love stories. I want to tell ghost stories. And then she kind of coalesces to be like, maybe it could be a ghost story with love in it. And this is a love story with a ghost in it. Like,
barely.
This is
barely a ghost.
Barely. So this is like, I really thought it would be like, oh, that's going to be a meta commentary about what this movie is. Is that like Guillermo del Toro doesn't want this movie to be a love story. He wants it to be a ghost story. And maybe there's a bit of love, but it is so wildly off the mark.
Yeah, there's so few ghosts in this. And like, the first couple ghosts are the mom, like her original mom, who Tom Hiddleston had nothing to do with her death, died of natural causes. She caught a disease. Who can tell the future? Because the ghost mom, when she's like 12, is like, beware Crimson Peak. And I'm like, why does ghost mom know the future? And why isn't her warning better? Beware Thomas Sharp is a way better warning.
Yeah, not the nickname of the family estate of the guy who is going to try to murder you.
Which you're not going to find out until you get there.
So
like,
late.
Can you tell the future or not, ghost mom?
Yeah.
You got to make a choice.
Yep. Ghost could easily be changed by any prophetic person. It could be like a fortune teller. Like the narrative device in this is not inherent on it being a ghost, or this whole idea that like I can see ghosts. Who gives a shit?
Who gives a shit? And like, I do like, there's one scene that I actually do like, which I like for ghost reasons. It's the scene where Charlie Hunnam is showing her like slides of ghosts on photos.
Yeah.
And he compares it to how like colorblind people can't see reds and greens.
That's a fun little scene.
It is a fun little scene. It is a nice little narrative of like, she's not crazy. This explains how some people could be able to see ghosts.
Sure.
And then the movie doesn't have anything else clever to say in that vein in any way.
And
or
also,
like why she doesn't see more ghosts.
And,
Like,
and also has no idea what to do with Charlie Hunnam's character as well.
oh boy, this movie has no idea what to do with Charlie Hunnam's character. What a miscasting as well.
It does not work.
No, I'm sorry, Charlie Hunnam. You as gentle doctor, while Jessica Chastain and Tom Hiddleston as goth twinks murder you. I just do not. I'm laughing the whole time. I'm like, Charlie Hunnam, fully aware they're murderers, not like taken by surprise and thinking they're innocent people, gets murdered by Tom Hiddleston and Jessica Chastain. He does not.
Yes.
He does not.
Yeah, it is not right.
Like, you would have had to, like, give the character a cane or something to explain to me why this man was defeated by these two, like, malnourished, incestuous people.
And they do look like they've never seen sun. Even like the two of them are like, the food here is miserable.
Yes.
We're malnourished. We're cold. We're miserable people. We're dying. And Charlie Hunnam looks like a healthy, strong Charlie Hunnam.
I would call him a strapping lad.
A strapping
Just
lad.
coming in full force of like, I'm here to save you, and I'm physically strong and very smart. And I've lost this fight so quickly.
So quickly. Yeah.
So quickly.
It does not work. And they have no powers.
That's a huge misstep of this film, huh? This film seems like it can't decide whether they have powers or not. I know at the end they don't, but it's really unclear for a long time if they have powers or not.
Well, legitimately, when Thomas Sharp, when Hiddleston's character reads an entire novel upside down in 3 seconds, I was like, oh, he's a vampire bat. I was like, he reads hanging upside down or something, and that's why he was, and also he's somewhat magical, which is why he managed to read several full pages of a novel upside down in seconds. He is a mystical creature, was the thing that I immediately assumed.
I didn't really know what they were, but when... And like it turns out they're not anything.
They're nothing.
They're not anything. They're just
nothing.
two incestuous brother and sister who are killing people for their money. That is literally all that's happening here. Nothing else supernatural other than the fact that ghosts exist and they're unrelated to the crimes. But yeah, when we got to the part where she finds like 3 packages with the marriage stuff in it, they kept like showing the dates of the years and I couldn't track how far apart they were. I was like, oh, he's like an immortal and he's like feeding off their youth or something, or like eating their babies. I don't know what's happening, but he definitely didn't have time to marry 4 women by now, right?
And especially when...
You're still like 35 years old.
And with 1800s travel...
That it takes so long.
Yeah.
And he didn't marry them locally. Like America, Milan,
I forget where else.
Edinburgh?
Edinburgh, yeah.
Like these are year-long trips.
Yes. Yeah.
To get there. Then you gotta woo, you gotta marry, you gotta travel back.
Yeah. No wonder your machine doesn't work yet. You haven't been at home working on your fucking machine, my dude. You need to put some more work in to try to find like inefficiencies to make it cheaper to manufacture. Because if you didn't spend 8 years wooing and honeypotting women, then maybe you'd be doing better in life, you weirdo. And then also too, like the other thing that makes it seem like they're gonna have magical powers is Jessica Chastain, who plays his sister, Lucille, has a ring, which I presume is magical for most of the movie.
Gets a lot of close-ups.
No, it doesn't.
Oh, it doesn't.
Because here's why I'm like, this was filmed in a fucking weekend. Is they introduced Jessica Chastain's character at this fancy ball party. And it's like, oh, here's Lucille, and she's playing the piano with her back to the camera. And she's playing piano. She's a piano player. And then she finishes the song, turns around to the camera, and then awkwardly walks towards the camera with one hand limply raised at the level of her head so the camera can see the big ring on her hand. And I'm like, this is such bad filmmaking because she was just playing the piano the perfect excuse to do a close-up of her hands playing piano.
That is the time you get a really good hand close-up.
To show this plot-relevant ring. But they didn't get that. So I'm like, this was filmed in a weekend. But you need me to know that this ring is magical as she limply holds her hand aloft towards the camera and walks across a room in a wide shot trying to give a close-up.
Trying to just push it into frame. Like,
Yeah.
You got it? You got the ring?
And it just sucked. But then she also covers up the ring with like a fancy glove to be like, but I can't let people know I have this. And I'm like, oh, it's a special magic ring.
Yeah, it's some kind of Eye of Agamotto. Don't look at my magical item.
It's nothing.
It's nothing. It was her mom's. And then Tom Hiddleston gives it to Edith because they're out of money and he can't afford to buy her a new ring is the plot point. And then she's just jealous because Lucille is also in love with Tom Hiddleston. So it's just a jealousy
Thing.
red herring, red ring,
Yeah.
red rum, something.
Yeah. Red her ring.
Red her ring.
Red a ring.
Ooh, red
Is
her
that
ring.
something?
Oh.
Is that something?
God damn it. That feels like something Zack Snyder would write down as something he thought was really clever. Their moms are both named Martha.
And it's a red her ring.
ring.
It's the dumbest smart thing that's ever existed.
Yeah. So the red her ring is nothing. It's absolutely nothing.
And what drives me nuts about the red her ring is that it is the close-up of it. I have to cover the ring. Ooh, maybe it's magical, maybe it's something. I have to sell the ring. We're not going to sell it. We're going to use it to start this scheme where I propose to Edith. I propose to Edith with it. Edith has it. Now you're jealous that she has it because it's your mother's ring and you're dating your sister and you're dating your brother and your brother gave it to his new girlfriend and you want it back. And then all of that's revealed and she gets it back. And then in the big final fight scene between Lucille and Edith, Lucille takes it back and puts it on and tries to like reach into an elevator. And we get a bunch of, now they actually got the close-up shots of Edith cutting at Lucille's fingers, cutting at Jessica Chastain's fingers. And it's this close-up of these deep gashes underneath the ring. And it's like, oh, you're going to cut her fingers off and then the ring's going to fall off? But it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
It is just an overly long close-up of the ring almost getting cut off to imply that if it did have magical powers, she would lose it. But it doesn't, and she doesn't. So why was this all a very contrived series of events to almost cut off a ring that doesn't not do anything?
This movie is filmed in a way that's almost like a choose your own adventure, where after he was done filming, Guillermo was like, and then after I've got all the footage, I'll decide if there's supernatural shit or not. After, like, you know, because you can add stuff with CG and you can be like, I'll decide later if it's supernatural or if it's just ghosts and they're normal people.
Yeah.
I've got all the footage I need if it is going to be if it is going to be weird stuff.
Yeah.
And then maybe that also, it doesn't explain this next part though.
It does explain that apparently, like, Guillermo was still writing new scenes while they were filming this movie. So they were literally laying the track as they drove the train. They didn't know what they were making as they made this.
So he's like, I'll film everything I want. I'll put it together at the end and see what I get.
Yeah.
And then what we got was circle wipes? What are these called? Zoom ins?
These wipes. Yeah, these transition effects.
These like me making a PowerPoint in 1995 transition effects.
And I get that this is a stylistic choice to make it look like the films that this is influenced by, but it doesn't land or work.
It doesn't land or work. It's like, it's too silly and you're making too serious a movie.
Yeah.
I will never see a close-up of like a bug and be like, oh yes, of course.
Yeah.
I feel the deepness of the metaphors now. Mostly I'm just insulted. I'm like, I saw the bug before you did the zoom in. Yes, I get it. The bugs are metaphors for Tom Hiddleston and Jessica Chastain, who also feed off the dead and are black moths. Thank you.
Yeah.
I got it.
Yeah. Yep.
I was so insulted.
I think that the weird transitions, the transition choices would work if this movie had landed one of the tones it was going for. If
In a right-toned movie, it would work perfectly.
Because you mentioned earlier that like it was kind of getting some of these Victorian tones, but it never quite landed it to be like it wasn't moody enough, it wasn't quiet enough, it wasn't ominous enough. You know, people are just delivering exposition at one another, so it was never moody. If it successfully accomplished that, if it did, then I think these transitions, while I don't think they are for us, I think it would work with the style and it would be a fun intellectual exercise. But when it is not moody and gothic and instead it's Jessica Chastain looking like she just came from a Simple Plan concert in 2003 and just being like, I'm moody. And it's like, you're not, and I don't buy it, and you don't look gothic. You look like a goth tween.
Yeah, you look like you went to a Hot Topic.
Yeah, yeah. You went into a Hot Topic and said, give me the goth, and they did the best they could. So that then with a, kind of a cheesy transition, it makes it cheesier.
Yeah, there are very few scenes where I think like the gothic horror comes across, and I think it's like very basic scenes that I do wish were like this was the vibe, because I think it is very terrifying. Because what's terrifying about this movie is how isolated she is. She's only with these two. There's like one person who works at the house who's there off and on. He mostly just works the machinery. So it's just Edith and this brother and sister. And they're literally miles away from anything else. They're on top of a peak. It's just fields. She's so excited to have this dog because it's so empty. And there's one scene where she's playing fetch with the dog outside. And you do finally get a sense of like how far away she is and isolated she is from everything. And if the movie was more of that, of like this feeling of isolation and separation and feeling trapped and claustrophobic, even though there's so much space, it would actually be really cool. And then you could like focus in on, look how small she is in this big open area. But the never finds that tone except for like 2 scenes. And like it would be a really cool, scary feeling if that's what this movie was.
Yeah.
But it's not what this movie is.
No.
It wants to be that in certain scenes. In other scenes, it wants to be just a straight up like modern day horror movie, because the ghosts are so modern.
The ghosts are modern. The ghosts do look good.
They look cool.
They look cool. I do want to pivot to like a positive for a moment, which is cool look.
It is. The ghosts look wildly cool. Yeah, like when like the first one with its long creepy nails, her mom like touches her shoulder, when it comes out of the floor, even when it's in the tub and there's an axe in its head, but it's also red and dripping. It does look wildly cool. It's not, the story's not set up in a way for it to actually be very scary, except for maybe the first ghost because we're so early in the story, but they look neat as hell.
Yeah. Yeah, the ghosts themselves look good, and also just like the set looks good. I like this house. I like the setting. It looks fucking good. You created a phenomenal set, a great mansion. It's the walls that are bleeding, but you came up with a narrative device to explain why that's happening, and it's treated like it's normal, and that's unsettling. There is so much about the practical execution of this set and this world, and then also just the visual execution of the special effects and the ghosts and how they do that. It just looks great top to bottom.
Yeah, it is actually. There are some very, very memorable, cool, like, set pieces in this. I will say, yeah, the giant hole that always has leaves and snow falling through it and sunlight, like, it is really cool. Every time they're on, like, the precipices and you can just see the light and, like, leaves coming through, it's like, you shouldn't live here, but that is so cool and it looks so great. And I believe you're actually in a giant mansion with a hole in it. And yeah, it seems cold. It feels freezing, even in the safety of my home. Yeah, the vibes and the construction of the house is incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, the vibes are just right. Yeah, just the constant need to be around a fire because, like, mentioning the cold, but, like, it does feel it. Yeah, I think they have, like, the wind rustling sound effect, the creak of the house. This place feels real and looks good.
Yeah, and they even just little things like all the beds have so many blankets on them. Like you can tell that this place is freezing. The fact that the house is really big, but they only use a couple rooms, and it feels like purposeful because those are the only rooms with fires. It doesn't feel like we didn't build enough of the house.
Yeah.
It feels like we're always in the kitchen because it's the warmest room in the house.
Yeah.
Because it's where we cook. So there's like 3 fires going in there. Because I'm like, wow, there's a lot of scenes in this this kitchen, but then you go into the hallway and there's snow in there. And you're like, yeah, you wouldn't be in the hallway. No, we don't have parkas yet.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't have parkas. Why would you go around this house? Even when she arrives, she's like, how many rooms are in this house? And it is weird that that at that point, Thomas Sharp is like, I don't know. Like, you don't know how many rooms are in your house? And I guess it's meant to imply that it's a big house, but I was like, but that also added to me to be like, did you kill the owners? Are you squatting here? Are you mystical again? But
that to me was more like him just being like modest. Like, I never bothered to count the rooms in my house.
Ah, okay.
Or he doesn't know because some of them have probably just fallen into disrepair. He's like, well, one room is two rooms used to be one room, but now the wall fell. So I guess that's one room.
So there's that.
And a tower toppled over at some point.
And we got a wonky elevator.
But we have an elevator. That seems very incongruous to me.
Yes.
To have an elevator and a giant hole in your roof in 1893.
Yeah.
So, like, when did either of these get installed then?
Yeah.
When did the hole pop up?
What are you or aren't you good at fixing? What are you or aren't you good at fixing?
Because even not fixing, I think we can afford a big sheet for the hole.
Sure.
It's not going to stop a lot of wind, but it'll stop the bugs and the birds and the snow, the literal snow. I think you can get a big sheet.
There are loose planks of wood laid over that hole, and there is snow and leaves getting around it. But there are with the camera pans up, there are loose planks.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry to imply there could also be a big sheet.
You could put a big sheet up there.
But then again, maybe the sheet blew away in the 8 months he's been in America.
Yeah. There are
sheet didn't hold.
Some silly dunks that I do want to say about the building and the building of it. This dude is looking for funding for an automatic mining machine, basically a conveyor belt that digs and then sends the stuff up.
Does it all in one.
It does it all in one.
Don't need to hire workers.
Also, like it's an invention that actually like exists. That was, I'm sure, revolutionary this time. It's like, look at it. It's an automatic digger. It digs it. It brings it up. Boom. And the main reason he's doing it and he's digging at his house is he's bragging about. He's like, the red soil and earth on my property creates the most powerful and incredible bricks and building supplies you'll ever see. And it's like, your house has a fucking split down the middle. Use some of the bricks. Like, he has all this like wet soil underneath his house, which I presume is for making the bricks. And he's like, how do I get it out of there more efficiently? Just get it out inefficiently. Sell some of it. Use it to patch your goddamn wall. What is it? Is that a scheme? Or are you a snake oil salesperson? I can never tell if he's a snake oil salesperson or legitimate, because this invention is legitimate, but clearly he also does not know how to make, lay, or do anything with this red soil or bricks that he's talking about being a wonder invention as well.
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense because, like, this feels like a very, like, the house is literally bleeding, which doesn't make a lot of sense when you're above ground level. I'm like, how is the clay getting up?
Yeah.
Like in the below ground parts, of course, I get why the walls would bleed red clay. But when it's like you're on the second floor, I was like, did you lay it inside very poorly? Like, did you try to patch the house with the clay?
Sure.
And it's just not working. But yeah, like when they were rich, because they were clearly rich at some point and they lost all their money. Mm-hmm. When they were rich, you would think the whole place would have been made out of brick.
Yeah.
Like, they're living on top of a thing you can build stuff with.
Yeah.
Why isn't like the fence this beautiful brick? None of the building is the beautiful brick. It's just like, we just wanted the aesthetic of the clay.
Yeah,
in the raw form.
I think it is that. Yeah, I think it's just for the Last Jedi type snow meets red aesthetic. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which I will say I think got wildly overly used. Earlier you were like, oh, it does look really cool, and it's a cool idea of like why things will genuinely look like they were bloody all the time and a cool way to like get rid of bodies, but like by like the 8th reference to like, oh, you'll have to forgive the clay. Oh, the red clay makes the snow look like blood. And I'm like, I fucking get it. The clay's red. It is just
It's just red clay.
It's just red clay. It looks like blood. I understand, but it's just clay. Mm-hmm. And they won't get off this train of how cool it is that the clay is really red.
Yeah, they really do like reminding you that the clay is red.
Oh, and may I also tangent, because you were on, okay, so you're on like the house isn't fixed and it's like it's falling apart. And this to me is the funniest part of the movie. Because you're like, Tom Hiddleston's bad at business, obviously. This is how bad he is at business. He has stolen 4 women's fortunes and still hasn't been able to afford to fix the house? Mm-hmm. What are you doing with this money?
Yeah.
Literally, where is it going? How bad at money can you be? Because you're not frivolously spending this. You don't, like, your food's shitty, your house isn't fixed, you don't have nice clothes. Where are these fortunes going? Yeah. You're the worst businessman I've ever met, ever.
He truly sucks.
He truly sucks.
Truly sucks, yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
He does not have any idea of how to make money in the interim. Despite owning a brick building business, he never builds or sells a brick.
No, and he's gotten 3 family fortunes worth of investments.
Yes.
Like, from what I can tell, most families who have this money, it just like self-replicates.
Yeah. How
are you poor?
And he makes the thing of like, I get how they lost their first fortune when he's like dead.
Of course.
Yeah. But how are you now also still poor? When to the point where it's like, well, if you really do love this invention of yours, first rebuild the house and then go to a bank and take a loan out against that home. Like, find other ways to do this. There's so many other ways other than honeypotting and murders.
Yeah, I have to say, by the second or third fortune, I'm just rebuilding the house.
Yeah.
I'm cold. I'm miserable. I'm probably not even enjoying having the incestuous sex with my sister because it's so chilly.
Frankly, I would say by the first Ponzi scheme, I am demolishing the house, living at whatever house the person I marry originally owns, and then I am just, who cares if I have the efficiency machine for mining? Once I remove the house from the land, it's easier to mine the land.
I don't have to worry about my house sinking into the clay.
Yeah, and now you have a revenue stream and can use that to fund your intellectual property.
This is another reason I thought they were supernatural. I thought they were literally tied to this land.
Same.
Like the way vampires need like their death dirt to sleep or something, or their grave dirt.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, you literally can't leave, because like him and Jessica Chastain have a conversation where he's like, I can't leave you. I can't. And it wasn't like a love declaration. It was like an entrapment declaration. I was like, oh, you're both trapped in this particular land.
Yeah.
That's why you can't sell it. That's why you need the machine to work so it'll make money. But no, they just like it.
They just like it, even though
they hate it.
And even though
she has a beautiful house in America that they could live in.
Yes. And Edith's character has this like VO voiceover at the end where she's just like, and some people, due to spiritual reasons, can't leave the place that they were. I'm like, but they weren't spirits before.
They were humans.
Yeah, this whole I'm bookending it with how like some spirits can never leave thing isn't in the middle. So why are we fucking talking about this?
Yeah, like Tom Hiddleston's ghost is trapped there now because that's where he died.
Yeah.
But he wasn't trapped there before.
Yeah.
And he wasn't like in love with any of the other ghosts. Like he wasn't like, I can't leave my mom. She's a ghost here. They were both like, we fucking hated our mom.
Yeah.
Fuck her.
It sucks here. And the mom was fucking up their elevator and shit. Like, the mom hated them, too.
I love that fucking up their elevator is a reason to do a murder. She's like, the elevator was misfunctioning because of her.
Because of her. No, post-murder, she was fucking up the elevator.
Yeah, I think she was, yeah.
I think that is literally the only plot-relevant thing that a ghost ever does, the plot-necessary thing that a ghost ever does in this movie, is that Edith walks into an elevator and then the elevator goes nuts and sends her down to the secret level where she finds then a trunk that has initials on it that she then later, there's still like 19 fucking steps to her getting that next clue, but it's a trunk with initials. And then there's the trunk.
Oh my God. This was the most realistic, insane thing that happened. Like, just like that took me so out of the movie. So she finds this trunk and she gets the key for it.
And it's a traditional steamer trunk.
Yeah, like
these
a big
the big fuck you rectangles that you would see like loaded onto the Titanic.
Yeah. And it's on its side. and she opens it and then opens it like a wardrobe, and nothing falls out. She doesn't tip it over. It's not that big. Like, it's not like, oh, my fragile little girl body. Like, you could put it normal ways over. And
also it's standing height up, which means that no matter how strong you are, it wants to be knocked over quite easily. It's a big steamer trunk. It wants to lay down normally, and it's standing upright as tall as her. And she opens it.
And like nothing falls out. It's full of stuff. And it's just insane. It's like, this is an insane way to do this. This also feels like a play. This feels like how you hide something, like when you're turned away from the camera, because the camera also never shows you inside of it.
Yeah.
But it just feels crazy.
It feels crazy and in an unnecessary way.
Yeah, just unnatural in a way you're not going for.
Yeah, because a way to do a close-up without doing a close-up again, where it's just like, well, the initials EW or whatever it was are on the handle, and now the handle's facing up towards the camera. And it's like, but cameras can move. So why did we move around the steamer trunk? Cameras can move. This looks like shit and is dumb.
Yeah, it really takes you out of it for a second.
A lot of this takes you out of it.
A lot of it takes you out of it. I was also very confused about ghosts. I don't know why Tom Hiddleston's ghost got old so fast. Like, why do you, like, reverse Anakin Skywalker's Force ghost? Because, like, Anakin, like, shows up, like, at the end of Return of the Jedi, and he's like, I'm young Anakin again. And Tom Hiddleston gets killed as a young man. He's like, I'm old ghost Tom.
His clothes are rotten, and, like, his flesh is being eaten away by time. It's like, you died minutes ago.
Why does ghost time work?
Yeah.
I got a lot of questions about ghost time and like why you have to come back all weird and shit when you're not even evil. Like him being all fucked up and he was evil, I get. Why are these poor innocent women all fucked up?
Oh, yeah,
They didn't go to hell.
No, they have unfinished business, I think is the traditional ghost thing.
Yeah, and I guess. They like got thrown into the clay, so they're all red and dripping bloody red stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and it's like, are we supposed to feel bad for him? He also did it.
He did it, yeah.
He did it.
Like he goes, like the scene where
he did a series of honeypotting and murders.
And like the scene where he goes and Charlie Hunnam's been stabbed by Jessica Chastain once already, and then he goes up to Charlie Hunnam and he's like, if I don't stab you, she will. And I'm like, well, just stab her. You're bigger than her. And then he's like, show me where to stab you. And I thought he just meant so Charlie Hunnam would have a quick, painless death. But I guess they both understood that he was saving Charlie Hunnam's life by stabbing him again anywhere? Don't stab him again.
I did understand what was being said non-verbally there, but I do also think it's very stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it is still now at this point
three against one
against Jessica, and all three of you, or well, at least Hiddleston has a weapon, and Jessica Chastain is just a goth.
Just a really committed goth.
Yeah.
But she doesn't currently have a weapon. She is, as we mentioned, very malnourished.
Yeah.
Not supernatural in any way, shape, or form.
In no way.
Like, you guys can take her.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely,
it's
you can.
Just, I'm so frustrated the whole third act. I'm like, this isn't exciting. You're all I could beat Jessica Chastain up. Mm-hmm. What was the movie you watched where she couldn't run?
Oh.
It wasn't the 355. It was the other action movie she did.
It was another one where she was a spy, and it's just like not everyone has to do their own stunts.
Was it even stunts? I thought she couldn't. Like,
it was just
jog.
running. It was just. I've never seen someone jog in a way like the way that Elaine Bennis dances on Seinfeld is how Jessica Chastain runs with her body. It's upsetting to see. It is, yeah, so it was...
Maybe Lucille should have ran a little.
Maybe...
It would have been like,
no, that would have been more like, you're a ghost or a spook or specter of some sort.
Zoom in,
yeah. The weird transition. So, yeah, just overpower her. I don't get it.
There was literally no supernatural reveal of anything going on. She was just a crazy woman.
And the last thing that I will say is that, like, with this whole, like, I don't know if they want me to think that Hiddleston's character is redeemed or not, because it's like, he's like, it's been a tough situation. Tell me where to stab you, otherwise she'll stab you. So it's like, okay, so you didn't
You did a
actively
nice
and
stab.
purposefully kill one man at the end, but you did still stab him. And you did still participate in the murder and conspiracy to commit murder over the course of a decade, multiple times, for multiple crimes and a lot of other truly terrible stuff. So you did all of that, and then at the end of the movie, he's now a Force ghost. And Edith turns to like Lucille, his sister, as they're having their final fight, and it's like, look. That's him behind you. That's who he is. And she's gesturing to both the ghost of him and his machine, which is now working. And I think it's meant to be like, that's his heart and soul. Look at the great things that he's done. And it's like, no, he sucks. I hate him.
Yeah, he wasn't unaware that Lucille was killing his wives. If that had been a reveal, that he didn't know she was poisoning them, then I'd be like, oh, well, yeah, you can just, like, it's not great that you were sleeping with your sister the whole time, but, like, that's not, like, you need to die kind of atrocity.
Yeah.
But, yeah, he was actively honeypotting and murdering women. Yeah. No, you don't get a redemption arc because you were like, I did a good stab at the end. That's so Loki.
Yeah,
that is the most Loki. I showed up
small scale Loki, which is worse.
Hey, I blew up Asgard as a redemption arc. Kind of like Loki-esque. Tom, you only play one guy.
Yeah, only plays one guy. It is. I don't want to say too much without spoiling a different film, but it feels like a bad and sloppily done version of what Ready or Not accomplished. In many ways.
Yeah. No, I was also getting Ready or Not vibes. I mean, this movie came out first, but I was like, Ready or Not did this way better.
Better. Yeah.
Ready or Not's
without all the
fun.
gothic stuff, obviously a very different tone throughout. But we do recommend Ready or Not.
It's gothic-esque.
I mean, there's
some elements.
There's some elements. Well, let's go into the close. Let's ask the final question of what would you change? So now that we've discussed everything we've discussed, what would you change about this if you could change anything? Before we do ask that final question, we do want to thank our one of our sponsors of today's episode. We want to thank our friends over at tpublic.com.
tpublic.com, where you're going to get your next favorite t-shirt or tank top or hoodie or mug or anything else that you like, just get designs on, basically. They got everything at tpublic.com.
Lots of different options.
Many things.
All well-made, well-priced, shipped right to your doorstep, so it's awesome and easy to shop.
It's so good, and they have such great designs made by indie artists who are getting a fair commission for their work. And also, because it's an indie artist, they're going to make a cool design you're not going to find anywhere else that really gets into the heart of the thing you like. It's so fun. Like the shirt I have this week is a Loki shirt. It's kind of it's President Loki like in silhouette, and it says believe, but then the word lie in the middle of believe is like highlighted, so it's like he also lies. It's a very good Loki shirt that I think just really highlights everything about him. It's such a cool shirt.
That's a really fun and good one. I like it a lot. One that I am liking this week is, do you guys ever think about dying? And that's the shirt, and it's Barbie doing like the sprinkler dance, and it's just a really fun, playful, do you guys ever think about dying? And I'm like, I love the vibes of that scene, that moment, this line, and also the design aesthetic that they've gone for, which is like fun and beachy, kind of meets like light up Vegas vibe. And it's, do you guys ever think about dying? It's fun.
We have a bunch of shirts by that artist, Rizzo Riddell, and they're all great.
All bangers.
The style is so good. So yeah, you can also even just find like an artist you like and go through all their stuff. And they have a bunch of sales all throughout November for holidays coming up. So get on over there.
And when you shop through our store link, not only do you directly support the artist who designed the shirt, but you also support this podcast as well. So head on over and have a look using our link, which is at tpublic.fromsuperheroes.com. That is teepublic.fromsuperheroes.com. And thank you, TeePublic, for your support.
Thank you so much, TeePublic.
And as well, we will remind you, if you haven't already, please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podcast Addict, wherever you might get your podcasts, because it helps us move up the charts, find new listeners, and we really appreciate it.
It means so much to us. It helps us. It's in the charts and in our hearts. We love hearing from you. We love seeing those 5-star reviews come in. It means people are going to be like, oh, these guys are irrelevant. They're cool. People like them. Right now. We're still here.
We're still here. We're still happening. So leave that review, please. It's a free way to support the show. If you do want to support the show monetarily and get cool bonuses for it, boy, that's fun. You're awesome.
We'd love that.
That's a great time, and you can do it over on Patreon, which is a monthly subscription service. You can subscribe at whatever is in your budget, as little as $1 a month or more, depending on whatever your budget is, and you'll get different levels of bonuses. At the $1 level, you get our webcomic. You get early access to our webcomic. At the $3 level,
what do you get then?
Then you are going to get episodes of this podcast early and ad-free.
That is especially fun right now because we're going to be doing the Marvels and Loki. When new releases come out, you can hear reviews immediately when you have the early and ad-free option.
That will be a very good time. Oh, yeah, so you can get that Loki action pretty quick.
Pretty quick, even though the episode's going to come out late on the regular pod.
Yay, eyebrows.
Oh,
and then at the $10 level, you can also get an exclusive and bonus episode of this podcast every single month, and you get immediate access to the back catalog. So we are talking 100+ episodes of this podcast that you get immediate access to over on the Patreon page. So check it out. Whatever is in your budget, there's an option there for you. Head on over to patreon.com/fromsuperheroes. That is patreon.com/fromsuperheroes. And thank you to all of our current and future patrons.
Thank you so much to our patrons. We really appreciate you. We couldn't keep the lights on without you.
And now let's go in for the close. Let's ask the final question of what would you change? Diana, what would you change?
My biggest change is pretty straightforward. We've kind of already talked about it. Their magic. There is some kind of magic going on with Tom Hiddleston and Jessica Chastain to explain why they're doing all this and why they won't leave. I like the idea that they are absorbing the youth of these women and their fortunes. So they get money and they get youth and they're quite old. And that they're like literally trapped in this land. Like they can travel, but they have to come back here to like kind of re-youngify themselves. So they're going to age when they travel away, but they have to come back to the house to like get young again, steal the youth of whoever the new young bride is. So yeah, that's my biggest change. It makes them a little bit stronger. So like Charlie Hunnam getting killed isn't ridiculous. I would say probably in order to kill them, because I'm going to make them a little bit stronger, they get killed by the machine.
Ooh, that's a fun poetic irony.
Yeah, because she's like, oh no, they're super powerful, strong. How am I going to kill them? I think Jessica Chastain would still kill Hiddleston because they can kill each other.
Sure.
And then Chastain's going to get thrown into the digging machine.
That's a great poetic irony.
Right? There's a giant kill machine right there that they love and have put all of their heart and money into. You got to use it to take one of them out.
Yeah.
So that's my big change. They're magic. They've killed. They will kill again. They're extra powerful. They get killed by the digger machine.
I love that.
Thank you. I was really happy with it when I came up with it.
That's a banger of a change.
Yeah, because like it's really hard when you're in times when you don't have like guns and like crazy, like it's like when you're in Prey and you're trying to kill the predator or something. Like It's like, what can you use? And I'm like, that digger machine is dangerous as hell. All right, so that's my change. Andrew, what would you change?
I love yours. I am 1,000% on board for yours, and yours would work with mine as well, even though mine's not as much of a banger. Mine is that this movie only ever takes place at the house.
I love that. No, it should.
Why are we in Chicago setting up a story where you write fiction, but you can't sell it, and your dad has money, but your mom died, and you see your mom's ghost who gives you a prophecy, which doesn't really mean much, blah, blah. The Chicago stuff sucks, and it's a buzzkill, and it's 1,000 miles per hour, and it's a waste. And this movie, when it works, it feels like it is trying to be a like Victorian Gothic The Shining. Mm-hmm. To be like, this setting is spooky and this setting actually brings a lot and the walls are bleeding. And I'm like, I get The Shining vibes and it's a great set too. I think that this movie should simply start with a husband taking his wife back to meet his weird sister. And that is where the movie begins. And we pick up because then it is we're getting her POV of I am a wife meeting a family member trying to solve a mystery in this house that has weird lock boxes and old recordings. And it works a lot like The Shining, except for the fact that like The Shining needs to kind of go through these hoops to be like, well, the trucks are broken because of this, and then this is missing, and that messes with the phone lines, where this is like, it's Gothic, so it's inherently scarier. So I like it set entirely at the house, and I even think that Charlie Hunnam's character, the other love interest, could be there as someone who knew her from America and is now in London, and that's filling in the rest of the plot line. Because the movie starts with his character coming back from London to Chicago to be like, I came back from school. Remember me? What if it was him being like, I'm here to study, and I heard that you live here now. That's crazy. Your dad died? Mm-hmm. Your mom died too. That's suspicious, right? And like him trying to get this slowly being poisoned sick woman who has a loose understanding of what's happening to remember that things seem weird with how she left back home.
No, I think that would absolutely work because like they establish she still gets mail, like he could come out and visit, but like she can't really escape still even then if he like as soon as he leaves. No, absolutely the house is the best part of this movie. The setting is so cool. Everything with Chicago makes everything else less spooky later because you're like Chicago's just normal. Yeah. And we should only exist in this spooky setting. Like, nothing is spooky in Chicago. Chicago felt like a mob movie. Like, the first act was nothing like the second and third act. So 100% we should only be at the house. 100% agree.
Yeah. Sweet. So, yeah, only at the house. And I agree with you. The two siblings have magical.
They're magical, and they die in the digger machine.
I love that. That's a great poetic irony the end.
Thank you. I know how to do a kill.
This is great.
Keep that in mind.
Wait, what?
I mean, Andrew, cut that out.
Andrew, edit that. Edit that out. Telling me to edit out your incriminating evidence.
Don't send this to the insurance companies or the police.
Not knowing how to edit the podcast and telling me to edit out your incriminating evidence is just that's just lovely stuff.
Am I charming enough for you to edit this part out of the podcast?
Wink. We'll see.
If there's just a static playing at this point, listeners, I've done my best.
Police, I'm keeping it in. Well, that's going to do it for this week talking about Crimson Peak. Thank you very much for listening. Next week, we are going to be back and we're going to be talking about the Marvels. And then after that, we will be back talking about Loki Season 2. So thank you very much for listening. If you want to find me online, you can find me on Instagram, Blue Sky, and Threads. I am at Ivimey, Ivimey.
If you want to go in the lesser-known areas, I am on Tumblr at Words of Diana.
And if you want to find both of us, you're going to want to check out FromSuperheroes.com, where you can find all the podcasts on our network, our webcomic, and everything that we do. Thank you very, very much for listening, and we'll talk to y'all next week.
Bye.